Right, so we're good to go there now.
Yes, go ahead.
Right. So good day, Mr. Wayne. Good day, fellow classmates. This presentation will be presented by myself, Caleb Joseph, Mandy Samuel, and Idris Samuel. Today, we'll be talking about organizations, understanding complex organizations. So we have 10 objectives to cover this evening. The first 4 objectives is what I will be covering. And at the end of this presentation, we hope that everyone has a understanding and a good grasp on regards to the complex structures that make up an organization. So first we'll discuss about groups and organizations. We should be able to define and differentiate between an organization and a group. So first off, what is an organization? An organization is a large collection of groups of people that interact in a continuous manner within a complex structure to accomplish a specific purpose, right? So we know that the organization consists of a large collection of groups, emphasis on the word groups. So mathematically, in a mathematical sense, you can say that a group is a subset of an organization. So here we have exhibit 8.1, which essentially is displaying the information that I just told you, but the layout is a little more better, a more comparative view, if you will. So when it comes to understanding a term, material, or a topic in general, the best questions to ask is who, what, when, where, how, and why. So with regards to a group, we know a group would be on a small to medium size. It would have 3+ participants. Compared to our organization, with regards to the size, it's tend to be very large with 20+ participants. What makes up a group would be a collection of individuals. And as I said earlier, with regards to our organization, what makes up our organization would be a collection of groups. One thing that both groups and organizations have in common is that there is continuous interaction within these structures, within these entities, if you so want to call it that, right? With regards to groups need to be able to operate in close proximity to each other. An organization, however, the proximity doesn't matter. It could be close, far, in between, they are still interconnected. And because these systems are so complex, and as you can see there, the how organizations, the foundation of organizations that run on complex structures. So because of those complex structures, organization doesn't have to be within close range with each other in order for it to efficiently operate. With regards to a group, it runs on a simple structure, hence the reason why close proximity is essential. And another thing in common with the two of them, why do we need a group and an organization? Well, simply is for a purpose, right? To meet a certain purpose, to complete a task, whatever. However else you want to phrase it, it's for a purpose. So taking the information that you're seeing in front of you and as well as what I just said, a real life scenario or example, if you will, would be like a business or office setting where the organization would be, let's say, Massimoto's, right? Everybody knows about Massimoto's, buying cars from them. That would be the actual organization. The group would be the departments that you find within Massimoto. So the sales department, accounting, HR, all these groups, well, in this case, these departments is what come together to make up what you see as Massimoto's. I'm also referring to the table under where we talk about the proximity, how it's not important in regards to the organization. We could keep in mind that another example that will show that would be Massimoto's. You don't have one Massimoto. You have one in Trinidad alone. You would have South, North and Song, And even across the Caribbean, you might have, like, if it's in Guyana, Grenada. And these organizations, they still operate, they still function. So this is just to clarify as how organizations, they don't need to be close to each other in order to operate and perform its function, perform its purpose, right? They are still interconnected in that way. So next we'll discuss organizations as complex systems. So first we need to ask ourselves, what is a system? Right? So a system is defined as an environment in which each interaction between members produce outcomes that affect each individual and subsequently the subsequent interactions and outcomes as well. So all that fancy word and wording that I now said, what does that really mean? It simply means that within a system, every action taken by its members influences not only themselves, but everyone else within the system, creating a chain reaction that will continually shape the system as a whole. So in this next table here, Exhibit 8.2, it's titled The 9 Laws of God, right, as it pertains to organizations as a system. So you have the first law called distribute being. And straight from the table, it says it's the essence of the organization. The essence of the organization exists in all of its connected members. So what does that really mean? It just highlights the importance of recognizing and valuing the contributions of every individual within the organization. Second law, the control from the bottom up, self-explanatory, is to empower members at all levels of the organization. Don't matter your position, once you are within that organization, you're not neglected, essentially. The third law is to cultivate increasing returns. So it means to focus on what your organization does well and do it even better. So by focusing and leveraging and enhancing the strengths of your organizations, instead of trying to strengthen the organization weaknesses, so you look at what it already strong at and make it even better, you're able to promote a continuous improvement and innovation. The fourth law, grow by chunking. Organizations grow not at one piece at a time, but in bunches. This can only happen through strategic initiatives or expansions, and it should bring about significant change through those expansions. The other law is to maximize the fringes. So honor your creative members and your ideas, even if they're really quote unquote out there. So what that really means is to honor and nurture unconventional yet innovative ideas. So it might sound a little too frivolous or too good to be true, or maybe unorthodox. But just because it sounds like that, as you will see in Goes Don't Judge a Book by its cover, when taken into consideration, given the proper attention and actually implementing it where it could grow and blossom, you might actually have something good instead of just disregarding it just because it isn't quote unquote it isn't sounding good or it's too far-fetched. Honor your errors, that is the next law. It is only through trial and error that learning happens. So by acknowledging and learning from errors, organizations can improve and evolve over time. The next law is to pursue no optima and have multiple goals. There's no one right answer to a complex problems. There are only many partial solutions. The next law, that's pretty self-explanatory. The next law would be seek persistent disequilibrium. So disequilibrium brings energy into the organization. What does that really mean? Stagnation. Stagnation just means you're staying in one spot. You're not moving. right? You're in that comfort zone essentially. Stagnation is detrimental to organizational growth and innovation. So this law speaks volume about the importance of viewing change and disruption as not as obstacles to be avoided, but as opportunities for growth and for improvement. The last law is change changes itself. Change leads to more change, which changes the initial change. It just rolls off your tongue when you read it. So this law mentions the importance of being flexible and proactive in responding to the change rather than resisting it. As Thanos once said, I'm inevitable. So in this case, change is inevitable, right? Resisting change is futile because you as a person, you change every day on a cellular level as well. Every day you change. So you cannot stop it. So if you know you cannot stop it, might as well embrace it and make the best out of it. So next we'll be talking about organizational leadership. So why does leadership exist in an organization? It exists to facilitate collaboration and coordination among groups towards achieving the organization goal. In other words, the leadership plays a crucial role in achieving the organization's mission. So to simply put, it is to accomplish the stated purpose of the organization. It is why it exists. So here we have the relational leadership model. If you pay attention to the diagram here, or the model, you can see that the process includes the purpose, inclusive, empowering, and ethical. So let's explain what this model really does. So this model encourages leaders to engage with all members of the organization, right? It encourages leaders to engage, and this would engage all members of the organization. So that immediately that covers the inclusive part, right, of the model. It empowers them to contribute meaningfully. So we're empowering our members here. Empowerment already explained there in the model as well. And uphold ethical principles in decision making. The ethical part of the model already fulfilled. So we have our purpose, we have the inclusive, being inclusive with the members, empowering, ethical. That's what makes up the process. And it encourages, and as I said again, this encourages leaders to use this because this is what you need to continue to build this organization. So I saying all this, but you might say, Caleb, I still don't understand, right? So to give an example of this would be, imagine you have a company, it going under some major changes, right? Organizational changes. They are implementing a new technology system in the organization, right? A good leader, an effective leader would apply this model to that situation by involving the employees in the decision-making process. So you might done, again, you're being inclusive. You're involving your employees in the decision-making process. You are empowering them to provide input and feedback. But you're also, while doing all that, you're ensuring transparency and fairness in the implementation process. So you're being ethical while doing that as well. It have no underlying meaning or whatnot. Being straightforward with you, completely transparent. X is X, Y is Y. Simple as that. So understanding organizational leadership, it involves recognizing its purpose and guiding a group or groups towards achieving the organization's mission, as well as maintaining focus on that mission over time and applying effective leadership models and principles to foster collaboration, empowerment, and ethical decision making, right? So next, we'll be moving on as we talk about mission, organizational mission, vision, and core values. We'll be discussing the importance of these three terms here. So What is a mission? The mission of an organization is its fundamental reason for existence. It's why you have the organization. The mission statement should capture the essence of what the organization does, providing clarity and direction for the organization's activities and decisions. So reading straight from the slide here, the statement should be shared widely in as many forms as possible so that it could be used to truly guide the actions of the organization. Also, the mission of your organization, it could be social, service related, programmatic, political, or any of what was mentioned above in any combination. But the effectiveness of your organization will be determined by how well it moves towards its mission. So essentially, your mission is your purpose, right? Remember that it's the purpose of why you have this. So I'll give an example because, I like to give examples, right? So an example of a mission would be, let's take for example, what we know, Caribbean Airlines, right? Let's say Caribbean Airlines, their mission is to is dedicated to providing high quality customer service with warmth and friendliness. The mission statement reflects the airline's commitment to customer satisfaction, and therefore it sets the tone for its operations and interactions with passengers. So next we're going to talk about vision. What is vision? So I have many ways you could look at it. Vision could be an ideal or a unique image of the future. It could also be an image of what the people of the enterprise aspire for it to be or become. So essentially, your vision or an organization's vision represents the aspirations and long-term goals by painting a picture of what the organization aims to achieve in the future. Its purpose is to also inspire and motivate employees, stakeholders, and other members of the organization, guiding their effects towards a shared purpose. Again, the next example. So everybody know the company Apple, right? So Apple's computer vision was to lead is to lead the industry and innovation with its products and services. So therefore, this vision to be the leading company in the technological technological industry, it reflects the ambition to be the forefront, right? To be the forefront of the technological advancement and to continually push the boundaries of innovation. So keep in mind, your mission is your purpose, but your vision is your goal, where you want to reach, right? So next, which is the final thing that I'll be talking about, would be core values. So what are core values? According to the slide here, right? It's the organization's essential and enduring tenets, a small set of general guiding principles. It's not to be confused with specific cultural or operating practices. It's not to be compromised for financial gain or short-term expediency. These core values, which is often just be small in number, 3 to 6 values, is so fundamental and deeply held that they will change or be compromised, compromise seldom if ever. So again, all that fancy thing, see, Caleb, what I really mean. It's the fundamental beliefs and principles of an organization that guides the behavior and decision making of individuals within said organization. It serves as what we know as a moral compass. It defines how employees would interact with each other, customers, stakeholders, and influence the organization's overall reputation and success. So again, another example, Levi Strauss & Co. So the jeans company, right? It identifies empathy, originality, integrity, and courage as its core values. So these values should therefore reflect the company's commitment to ethical conduct, creativity, and empathy towards its employees, customers, and communities. So again, recapping everything that these three terms that I went through with you, the mission defines the organization's purpose. The vision outlines its future aspirations, and the core values will guide its behavior and culture. Together, these three terms, these three elements, is what will form the foundation of an organization's identity and serve as guiding principles for its actions and for its decisions. So, before I put you on to Mandy for her to continue the rest of the presentation, I like to mention one thing because I like to, in some cases, I like to look things at a holistic view, take a holistic approach. So these three elements that I mentioned, these three terms, the mission, the vision, the core values, it isn't only applied to organizations or to groups. It's applied, this could also be applied to your daily life, right? Your personal life, you as a person, as an individual. What is my purpose in life? What is my vision? What do I want to achieve? Where do I want to reach? And what are my core values? What is my moral compass? What are the things that are my creeds? What I stand by? What would I be against? What I would agree with? No matter the old saying, if you don't stand for anything, if you don't stand for nothing, you will fall for anything. So what are your creeds? And make sure you live by it, right? So this is my end of this portion of the presentation. I will now hand you over to Mandy, who will be discussing the organizational structure.
So good evening, everyone. Now we will be looking at the organizational structure. Next slide. So the organizational structure was first created by a gentleman known as Max Weber. And Max Weber, he was a German sociologist, philosopher, and economist. He made significant contributions to the fields of sociology, economics, and political science, with his work having a lasting impact on our understanding of organizations and bureaucracy. He believed that bureaucracies were essential for the efficient functioning of modern organizations and societies. Next slide. Eventually, Max Weber's ideas on organizational structure encompass various models, each with its own purpose and characteristics. Here we have 4 types of organizational structures formed from Max Weber's ideas. And firstly, we have the traditional hierarchical structure. Secondly, we have the inverted organizational structure. Thirdly, we have the web structure. And lastly, we have the non-hierarchical structure. Next slide. In the traditional hierarchical structure, as conceptualized by Max Weber, features a pyramid-like hierarchy with clear levels of authority and responsibility. As we can see from the image shown, the pyramid here, it shows a flow of decision making from the top to the bottom with power concentrated at the upper levels of the pyramid. At the top, we have the president, and the president is the individual that holds the highest level of authority and decision-making power within the organization. In the middle, we have the officers, committee, chairs. And these officers and committee chairs are below the president. So these individuals, they oversee specific departments or functions within the organization. So they would report directly to the president, and they would be responsible for implementing the organization's policies and objectives. And finally, at the bottom of the pyramid, we have the participants or members of the organization. So these individuals, they carry out the tasks and responsibilities assigned to them by the officers and the committee chairs. They have limited decision making authority, and they typically follow instructions from the higher ranking officials. So for example, let's consider a large corporation like Amazon. Jeff Bezos, the founder and former CEO, would be occupied at the top of the hierarchical pyramid. So he would represent the president, and below him, we would have the executives like the chief financial officer, the chief technology officer, and various vice presidents. And they would represent the officers, committee or committee chairs, and these are the individuals who would oversee different aspects of the businesses, such as finance, technology, and operations of the organization. And at the bottom of the pyramid, we have the participants, and they would represent in the organization the employees working in the warehouses, customer service, and other roles in the organization. They would follow the direct order set by the executives, which would be the officers or the committee chairs. And in other words, we could say this pyramid is like a chain of command. And the purpose of this structure is to ensure efficiency and clarity in roles and accountability within the organization. Next slide, please. So now we have the inverted organizational structure. As seen demonstrated, in contrast to the traditional model, the inverted structure flips the pyramid upside down. So in this model, the emphasis is on the empowering frontline employees with leadership providing support from below. So we will see the president providing support to the participants or the members. And so at the bottom of the pyramid, we have the president, and this means that their role is to support and empower the members of the organization rather than exerting control from the top, as seen in the traditional model. So Just as before, as seen in the previous model, we have the officers and these individuals still play an important role in organizing and coordinating the activities of the organization. However, contrary to the traditional model, their authority is more about facilitating collaboration and empowering the members or the participants rather than directing or giving orders from above. And at the top of the inverted pyramid are the participants. You all hear me, right?
Yeah, we are here.
Okay. Right. So at the top of the inverted pyramid are the participants or the members of the organization, and they have the most influence and decision-making power within the structure or the organization. And their voices are valued and they are encouraged to take ownership of the organization's goals and activities. For example, let's consider a grassroots community organization. Grassroots community is basically a community that has a positive impact. So they will be focusing on environmental conservation in this organization. So in the inverted structure, the president would act as a supporter and a resource provider for the members who are passionate individuals interested in preserving local ecosystems. And the officers or the community chairs would facilitate discussions and initiatives, but the real power lies with the members and the participants who actively engage in planning and executing projects such as the tree planting campaigns or like beach cleanups. So basically, the president's role and enable the members or the participants to achieve their environmental goals. And well, the purpose for this structure is to foster innovation, employee engagement, and responsiveness to the changing environment. Next slide. Right, so now we have the web structure. And as it can be seen demonstrated on the image, the web structure resembles a spider web with the nodes representing individuals. So the nodes would be the dots on the diagram, and they would represent individuals or groups interconnected based on the common purpose. This structure allows for flexibility and adaptability. Instead of following a hierarchy like the traditional model, so communication in this structure was freely among all the levels of organization, and decision making is decentralized. So each member of the organization is connected to others through various strands of the web, allowing for easy exchange of information and collaboration. The purpose of this structure is to promote collaboration, innovation, and responsiveness to complex and dynamic environments. For example, a community organization focused on environmental conservation. Members of the organization, including volunteers, activists, and local residents, they would collaborate through various projects and initiatives to protect the natural resources and promote sustainability. And this shows us that we can, so we can see communication and decision making is distributed and connected. Next slide, please. Right now, lastly, we have the non-hierarchical organizational structure. And in this structure, power and authority are shared equally among all the members of the organization, rather than being concentrated at the top of the top, like a traditional hierarchy structure. This means that there's no strict levels or layers of authority, and decisions are often made through consensus among all members. So in simpler terms, everyone in the organization has an equal say in how things are done, and leadership roles are shared among the members. So this promotes a sense of equality and collaboration within the organization, as each individual's voice is valued equally. The purpose of a non-hierarchical organizational structure is to promote equality, collaboration, and shared decision making among all the members of the organization. An example could be a worker-owned cooperative where all the employees have an equal ownership stake in the business, and they all participate in decision-making processes such as hiring, or budgeting, or work schedules, etc. Next slide. So now we will be looking at the organizational culture. Next slide. Right, so here we have definitions of what organizational culture could mean. So we have firstly we have Edgar Schein, and he is a renowned organizational psychologist and former professor. And well, he defines organizational culture as a pattern of shared basic assumptions that was learned by a group as it solved its problems of external adaptation and internal integration, that has worked well enough to be considered valid and therefore to be taught to new members as the correct way to perceive, think, and feel in relation to those problems. And next we have James Cass, and James Cass, he was a philosopher, a theologian, as well as a professor, just like Edgar. And he defines organizational culture as an infinite game. Culture has no boundaries, and for this reason, it can be said that Where society is defined by its boundaries, the culture is defined by its horizons. So from these definitions, we can understand that organization, organizational culture refers to the shared values, beliefs, norms, and behaviors that shape the way individuals within an organization perceive, think, and act. Next slide. So some concepts of organizational culture are concept one. We have Sheehan's three levels of organizational culture. Concept two, we have Deal and Kennedy's framework. Concept three, we have Pullman and Deal's four frames of organizations. And concept four, we have Hofstede's cultural dimensions. So now we would have an in-depth explanation of what each concept is. Next slide, please. Right, so in the first concept, Edgar Schmidt, he proposes that culture has three different levels. And these levels are the artifacts, exposed beliefs and values, and underlying assumptions. So, what could be the artifacts? So, the artifacts in culture, they refer to the visible manifestations of culture, such as the symbols, rituals, and structures within the organization. For example, a company's dress code, office layout, or the way meetings are conducted reflects its culture. So the dress code, for example, if a company allows employees to dress in jeans and a t-shirt, right, that would reflect a culture that values informality, creativity, and individual expression. Whereas a company that requires whereas a company that requires suits and ties reflects a culture of professionalism, tradition, and adherence to the norms. In terms of the office layout, we could say that an open office layout, um, an open office layout would reflect a culture that values teamwork, communication, accessibility, and a closed, like cubicle office. They would reflect a culture of privacy and individual focus. Um, and a company that um, um, a company that has regular meeting practices such as like brainstorming sessions, um, open discussions. They would reflect a culture of transparency, employee participation, collaboration, whereas a company with minimal interaction, they would represent a culture of a more centralized decision making. Next slide, no, not next slide. Right, so the exposed beliefs and values. Um, they would be like the stated beliefs, the philosophies, and the goals of the organization that claims to embrace and guide the organization's actions and decisions. They are often communicated through mission statements, corporate policies, and strategic plans. And lastly, we have the underlying assumptions. These are deeply ingrained unconscious beliefs, perceptions, and attitudes that guide the behavior within the organization. They are often taken for granted and influence how individuals interpret and respond to various situations. Next slide, please. So now we have the second concept, and we have Terence Steele. Terence Steele is a person on the top, and we have Alan Kennedy, and he would be the image of the bottom. And um, they emphasized a framework of values, heroes, rites and rituals, and communication networks. So the values provide a core foundation for the organization's identity and guide the members' behavior. Heroes, however, they would exemplify desired behaviors and serve as role models for others within the organization. Rites and rituals, they shape everyday interactions and procedures, reinforcing cultural norms and expectations. We can see this is basically like routines. And communication networks facilitates the of information and influence the organizational dynamics. For example, we consider like a retail company where teamwork and customer satisfaction are core values. So they will represent, so the customer satisfaction, that will represent the value, and employees who go above and beyond to assist customers or resolve issues may be celebrated as heroes. So that will represent the hero part of the framework, and daily team leaders and monthly recognition ceremonies serve as rituals that reinforce collaborative behaviors and recognize outstanding performance. So we can see like a random ritual would be like employee of the month. That can be like a ritual. The company's intranet platform. Intranet is the company's secured information, and this provides like a, a system for communication and feedback within the company. So that would serve as a communicator network. Next slide, please. Right, so now we have concept 3. So we still can stay again, and then on the bottom we have Lee Bowman. And they came up with 4 frames of organization, which are the structural frame, the human resource frame, the political frame, and the symbolic frame. So the structural frame focuses on the formal processes and roles within the organization. For example, in a retail corporation, the structural frame would involve the hierarchical structure of the company, including the various departments and job descriptions, etc. And the human resource frame emphasizes employee motivation and development. This would involve the company's policies and practices related to recruitment, training, etc. And the political frame highlights power dynamics, conflict resolution, and decision-making processes within the organization. This involves how power is distributed among different levels of management and how conflicts are managed and resolved. And the symbolic frame, where these explore the stories, the symbols, the ceremonies that define the organizational identity and culture. This would involve examining the mission statement, brand identity, etc. Next slide, please. Okay. Right. So now lastly, we have concept form by good and he identifies 5 cultural dimensions. The power distance index, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance index, and the long-term orientation. And he understood this to be like a cross-cultural difference. And these dimensions, they influenced how individuals and organizations perceive authority, individualism versus collectivism, gender roles, tolerance for uncertainty, and time orientation. Next slide, please. And finally, we will look at organizational network. Next slide, please. So the organizational network are like interconnected webs where different groups of people and organizations come together to collaborate towards common goals. So imagine it like a spider web, as it can be seen, where each strand represents a connection between individuals or groups. So for example, imagine like a community, like a community event, like a charity fundraiser. It brings together various individuals, businesses, and community groups, all moving towards the common goal of raising money for a cause. This would conclude my part of the presentation. So I will now pass you on to Jules.
So hi, good night, everyone. So the first topic I'll be presenting on will be the life cycles of organizations. Next slide. Next slide. So throughout their existence, organizations go through various predictable changes. Go back, go back. These are referred to as the organizational life cycle. The organization life cycle is a theoretical model based on the changes organizations experience as they grow and mature. So just as living organisms grow and decline in predictable patterns, so do organizations. So modern sources generally recognize Mason Ayres' 1959 Modern Organizational Theory as a first study done using a biological model for organizational growth. Next slide. So in order for an organization to succeed, certain constructs must be taken into account. So the first thing we need to talk about is adaptability. So while it might seem that organizations are beyond control, there's a critical factor that determines their success, and that's adaptability. It's all about how well an organization can navigate changes, be it in its condition, its membership, or its leadership. This capability to adapt is what keeps an organization vibrant and capable of renewing itself. Next, we have the role of small groups. So imagine a small group of children with a burning idea coming together to form an organization. So this initial fire, this dedication often propels the organization to great heights, but there's a catch. This success can be fleeting unless there's a plan for what comes next. This brings us to the importance of generativity, which is basically preparing and mentoring the next generation of leaders to ensure the organization's longevity. After which we're going to talk about the organization life cycle. So John W. Gardner talked about organizations moving from infancy to maturity, and Addies took it further, describing stages from courtship all the way to death. So each stage with its gains and losses is a step in the organization's evolution. So when young organizations are flexible and dynamic, as they grow, they trade some of this dynamism for efficiency and for structure. After which we have the transition from action to administration. So in the early days, it's all about doing. So Sergeant Shriver, he was a member of the Marine Peace Corps, and he noted that in infancy, in the Marines, there was no time for meetings. They were simply too busy to make things happen. Yet this phase of intense activity is not sustainable. Organizations must evolve, asking themselves how their achievements align with their mission and ensuring they're not just busy, but effective. So what is the role for critical leadership? So as leaders, our role isn't just to steer the organization through its current challenges, but to prepare it for the future. This means identifying, recruiting, and mentoring future leaders. It means ensuring that our organization doesn't just survive, but it thrives through the remaining of its mission. Next slide. So next we have the 5 phases of the organizational life cycle. So the first stage is the birth event. So this is when an organization starts. It is characterized by a high energy launch with a focus on getting the organization off the ground. So the main focus during this birth phase is just survival. It establishes an identity and it secures necessary resources. The structure is typically informal and decision-making is quick. The risk of failure during this stage is also very high. Next, we have the growth stage. So if the organization successfully navigates the birth stage, it enters growth. During this phase, the organization expands as it starts to establish its product or services in the market. Next, we have the maturity stage. So the organization has now established a solid presence in the market and has steady revenue streams. So the growth rates may slow down as the market saturates. So there's a focus shift towards maintaining market share, improving efficiencies, and maximizing profit. Next, we have the decline stage. So if an organization cannot maintain the momentum of the maturity stage, they enter decline. After which we have renewal. This is the final stage, and which is critical for the organization in the decline stage. This phase involves making strategic decisions that could include reorganization, taking the company in a new direction, or undergoing a merger, acquisition, or sale. So throughout these stages, it is important to note that the life cycle isn't strictly linear. Organizations may cycle through growth, maturity, and renewal multiple times, and some may even skip stages or move through them out of order. Next slide. So next we're going to be talking about the multicultural organizational development. So the multicultural organization development generally refers to the process in which an organization's member component grows from a single or limited number of cultural backgrounds to a multicultural background, turning into a diversified, inclusive, and complementary group. Cultural diversity is becoming an increasingly significant measurement when employers, employees, and the public are evaluating a team. Building a multicultural organization is a justified direction and a crucial task for teams and corporations. Next slide. So what we're going to talk about next is the various components that are fundamental to the sustainability of any organization, specifically through the lens of multicultural organizational development. The first thing we're going to talk about is the need for transformation. So organizations are living entities. They must evolve to remain vibrant and viable. To truly transform, one effective approach is through multicultural organizational development, which is a process that champions the full participation of individuals from all cultures and social backgrounds, and it strives to end social oppression within the organization. Next, we have embracing the diversity and social justice. So this process isn't just about diversity, it's about equity, inclusion, and social justice. It's about making sure everyone in the organization can participate fully and meaningfully. So think about it. What would happen if every organization on our campus committed to this deal? Imagine the transformation. Our campus would be more vibrant, becoming an equitable space for students, faculty, and staff alike. After which we have the evolution of organizational perspectives. So experts like Amor, Hayes, and Jackson, they provide models that guide organizations from being monocultural and exclusionary to embracing a multicultural and exclusive perspective. So this evolution moves through phases from merely complying with non-discriminatory policies to actively redefining the organization. And lastly, we have understanding assumptions and perspectives. So Jackson and Holvino, they talk about the underlying assumptions that change agents have. So those with a monocultural view see society as harmonious, while those with a multicultural perspective see society with conflict and necessitating radical change. So these are perspectives you might already notice around you. Next slide. So this image depicts a spectrum of changes that an organization might go through in its journey towards becoming truly multicultural. So for the first stage, we have the exclusionary stage. So at this initial stage, an organization is monocultural. Policies and practices result in certain groups being excluded, either deliberately or through neglect. The next stage we have here is the club stage. And in this stage, the organization may have some diversity, but there's an insider mentality where dominant culture still prevails. Next, we have compliance. And this is moving towards a non-discriminating point at which an organization follows laws and regulations that mandate non-discrimination. However, the changes are superficial and driven by the desire to avoid penalties rather than the general commitment towards diversity. After which we have the affirming stage. So here the organization begins to value diversity and makes more concentrated effects to include different groups. It's not just about following the rules, but about recognizing the benefits of a diverse workforce. After which we have redefining. So this is a significant leap towards becoming multicultural. The organization is actively engaged in redefining policies, practices, and culture. And lastly, and in the final stage, we have the multicultural stage. So the organization has fully embraced multicultural identity. Diversity is deeply embedded in every aspect of the organization's operations and culture. So the image represents an ideal path of transformation, indicating that as organizations progress through these stages, they become more inclusive and equitable. Next slide. Next slide. Right. So this image presents a table that outlines different assumptions that change agents might hold about society, oppression, self-interest in charge, values, and ideology, depending on whether they come from a monocultural, non-discriminatory, or multicultural perspective. So let's deal with the monocultural perspective first. So in this perspective, society is seen as harmonious with similar interests among people. Improvement is needed, but the fundamental structure is okay. Oppression in this perspective is maintained through dominance, and prevailing liberation model is assimilation. After which we have the non-discriminatory perspective. So in this perspective, society is understood as needing desegregation, but doesn't fundamentally challenge the existing order. The liberation model is integration, allowing for some adaptation and fuller use of human resources. The last perspective is the multicultural perspective. So in this perspective, society is seen as filled with conflict due to different interests, and change agents believe in the need for radical change to address oppressive and alienating structures. Next slide. So next we're going to talk about learning organizations. So in today's dynamic and ever-evolving business landscape, organizations must continuously adapt, innovate, and stay ahead of the curve. From new digital technologies to innovations in the market, the reality calls for a fundamental shift in how companies operate their learning and development. So in 1990, author and system scientist Peter Senge popularized the concept of learning organizations. He described them as companies where people continuously expand their capacity to create results. Next slide. So just to recap, the idea of learning organizations were coined by leaders like Peter Senge and Watkins, and it represents organizations equipped to continuously grow, change, and develop. So adaptation is key to meet the challenges of rapidly changing environments. So the first component, multicultural organization development, is personal mastery. So in this component, every individual excels in their roles and has a continuous skill development. An example of this would be a treasurer mastering new financial software, or a vice president effectively coordinating committee chairs. So in personal mastery, it involves individuals reaching for their highest potential and continuously improving their competencies. It's all about being proactive in learning and applying new skills to the organization's benefit. Next, we have mental models, and this includes the assumptions and beliefs we hold about the world. They shape our understanding and can lead to conflict if not aligned. So mental models refers to the deeply ingrained assumptions, generalizations, or even pictures or images that influence how we understand the world and take action. It's vital to challenge these models to inspire change and innovation. Next, we have shared vision. So this is a common purpose that drives organization. Beyond personal mastery, a unified direction is essential. So in shared vision, a shared vision is not imposed from the top. It's shared by all, creating a commonality that provides focus and energy for learning. It's the guiding star that gives coherence to the diverse activities. Where there is a genuine vision, people excel and learn, not only because they want to, not only because they have to, but because they want to. Next slide. Next, we have team learning. So this is a collective learning. This is where collective learning is crucial as individual learning. It involves mastering group dynamics, decision-making, and communication. So in team learning, the process of aligning and developing the capabilities of a team to create the result is the ultimate desire. It builds collective thinking and is crucial to the success of the organization. After which we have system thinking. So this is a holistic approach considering the organization as a collective entity. It encourages shared responsibility for success and failures. This is the cornerstone of learning in the organization. It's a framework for seeing interrelationships or seeing patterns of change rather than static snapshots. So imagine a student government needing to appoint a board member. They must quickly learn the board's operation, pertinent issues, and effective strategies. Not only learning organizational strategies with its flexibility and holistic approach can adequately navigate such a scenario. Next slide. The next type of organization is virtual organization. So what is a virtual organization? A virtual organization is an operation where all members of the company work in different geographic locations while appearing as a single unit. It uses computers, softwares, phones, and other technology to work together and converse in real time, despite any physical distance. It's important for virtual organizations to establish detailed procedures that ensure consistency in employee performance and it provides employees with ample resources and the support it needs to conduct their responsibilities in a remote work environment. Next slide. So next we have some characteristics of virtual organizations. So in virtual organizations, you have trust is fundamental, yet challenging without face-to-face interaction. You have a common purpose and shared values. These are critical. We have organizations are flatter, reducing hierarchical layers, promoting trust and inclusive decision-making. Next, we have virtual leadership. So leadership centers on the relationship development, crucial in both physical and virtual spaces. So Avolio and Kaya, they note the shift of leadership to lower organization levels and within networks. Leaders are increasingly expected to be comfortable with the complexity and lifelong learning. So what is the essence of virtual leadership? So leadership in virtual environments transcends physical interaction, focusing instead on the ability to foster relationships and trust digitally. Next, we have e-leadership and e-teams. So Chrysler outlines the successful e-leaders who thrive in uncertainty and are driven by core values. The e-team effectiveness hinges on cohesion, trust, and information sharing, conflict moderation, coordination, and social capital development. Next slide. Right. So your organization and virtuality. So consider if your organization operates virtually with members interacting sporadically in person. Student governments and other campus groups might already function as part of virtual networks. So reflect on the dynamics of your own organization. Are interactions and collaborations increasingly digital? Consider the virtual networks that you are a part of, like regional or national student government coalitions, which may not only connect through digital means. So what is the impact and the future of technology in organizations? So technology allows unprecedented communication and information sharing capabilities. It poses questions about the balance of community, quality, and quantity. So we must consider when the abundance of information might become more paralyzing than empowering. The future will undoubtedly see change in organizations, operations due to technology, the extent of which remains to be seen. So technology is shaping the way in which we form, run, and participate in organizations. As we move forward, our challenges will be to harness the power of virtuality to build stronger, more connected, and more effective organizations. Next slide. So the last topic we'll be talking about is new paradigm relationship in a conventional paradigm culture. So imagine you discovered a new way to lead, a fresh, dynamic approach that promises to revolutionize how things are done. This is what we call the new paradigm relationship. It's exciting, modern, and it's effective, but there's a catch. The culture you're operating in hasn't caught up. It's still rooted in conventional, perhaps outdated methods. Here's the thing. Such a scenario isn't just a hypothetical situation. Taking it, after reading an enlightening material like a book we're discussing, you might feel energized to implement these innovative strategies. Yet, you find the environment around you isn't as receptive. It feels like being a jet pilot in a world where everyone is still riding a horse. So what do you do when you're ready to soar, but the culture around you is content to trot? Firstly, start by sharing what you've learned. Talk about it with other leaders, peers, advisors, or anyone willing to listen. Why? For two reasons. Sharing reinforces your own understanding and might spark interest in others. Next, own it. Don't fall into the trap of thinking, I can't do this because X wouldn't allow it. Look for the yes in a sea of no's. Stay optimistic and seek out opportunities to apply these new approaches, even if they're small to start with. Also, don't hesitate to extend your influence. Offer to run programs, speak at events, or teach sessions with other groups. By stepping outside your immediate circle, you're not only spreading the word, you're also practicing this new style of leadership. So in conclusion, being a proponent of new paradigm is in a conventional setting isn't without challenges, but it's an opportunity for growth, influence, and change. Your leadership library isn't just a collection of books, it's an arsenal for transformation. All right, so that's it for our presentation. Next slide. Next, we have our references. And thank you for taking time to listen, and we hope our presentation was beneficial.